Hey guys, welcome back to Psycho Opinion. So, what if I told you the U.S. government has officially acknowledged that UFOs are real? Not aliens, not little green men, but unidentified aerial phenomena. We're going to talk about a lot tonight, which is UAPs. Objects in our skies performing movements that defy known aircraft capabilities. In 2020, the Pentagon officially released and authenticated Navy footage of UAP encounters. In 2023, former intelligence officials testified before Congress claiming the U.S. has recovered non-human biologics. And now there are renewed efforts to declassify even more files surrounding unidentified aerial phenomenon. Add to the recent political pressure, including statements from President Trump indicating support for further file releases, and suddenly this topic isn't late night radio anymore. It's mainstream. Tonight we're diving into what has actually been disclosed, allegations of recovered and reverse engineered tech, what the government says it plans to release, and what this could mean for humanity. Because whether you believe it or not, something has shifted. All this stuff is coming to light, and it seems to me like we're kind of on the cusp of something big here. We're kind of on the, I think that, in the next couple of years, we're really going to see some crazy things happening and coming out. So we're just going to kind of discuss what's already been disclosed and what may be coming up and what that may mean for us. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a look at these videos that I had mentioned. And I know that Steve is prepared to speak on some of these.
I am. Yeah, so we want to get into, start with maybe the Tic Tac video. That's a popular one.
All right, we're going to go ahead and play these videos, and then we'll kind of discuss them a little bit for you. So this one here, guys, is called the Tic Tac video.
You call it the VVSS team.
Yeah, like 22,000 feet.
That shit took off earlier.
All right, Steve. So what do you think of this one here that we just saw? What are your thoughts and feelings on the Tic Tac video? I know that you've kind of researched this and looked into this a little bit more than I have, so I'd like to let you speak on it.
Sure. It's one of the older videos that we've seen as of late that's been released to public domain. This one took place in November of 2004 off the coast of California. And there were two aircraft that were part of a training seminar that were running exercises and were tasked to intercept something that was picked up by their carrier strike group's radar, which was from the USS Nimitz. Upon the initial observation of this craft, or UAP, they noted a speed of about 138 miles an hour, flying around 28,000 feet, which is just a little bit higher than what typical aircraft or military aircraft flies. It was then seen moving even slower down to like 44 miles per hour, which you and I had talked about before, being quite slow for something to be able to almost hover in air, because any sort of device that has a forward trajectory has to maintain a certain amount of, I should say, the lack of resistance underneath to keep it floating in the air, like helicopters, for example, or drones. So jets,
44 is nothing. I mean,
it isn't.
If it wasn't a helicopter or a drone, it should be like falling out of the sky at that speed.
Correct. So that was definitely interesting. The UAP was then documented accelerating instantly to Mach 2.5, which is
now
quite fast.
Instantly, like, I mean, we're talking just boom.
Pretty much from 44 miles per hour to around 1,900 miles per hour.
And that is not even close to the capability that we have as we know today.
That'd be doing something. That'd be pushing it pretty quick. Then, even maybe more strange, the UAP was then reported to be seen at an elevation of 60,000 feet, which is almost 11 and a half miles in the air, far higher up than any of our planes are going to fly at. But we can, of course, catch them on radar at that elevation. And at 60,000 feet in the air, almost instantaneously within a handful of seconds, drop down to sea level, which is insane, covering 11 and a half miles in just under a few seconds.
That's crazy.
That's virtually impossible, and certainly is much faster than what gravity would take anything from a rock or feather or anything else. So that's not very common. I mean, you would have to have like a rocket pointed directly down, traveling at that speed, and even then, that's far beyond what our capabilities are.
Well, beyond capabilities, that would be hard for a human to even withstand, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, no, for sure. There are certain fighter jet pilots and like Blue Angels and those types of guys are always pushing the envelope of how many Machs they can withstand before passing out, let alone having your inside start to virtually turn to liquid. So I'm not familiar with those speeds, but I can understand that is hauling some major ass. And even more so, this top speed that was caught when this thing finally took off and they lost it was Mach 55, which is over 42,000 miles per hour. That is impossible. I mean, I'll just come out and say it. That's impossible. That's an impossibility. And maybe more so from an impossible standpoint, no sound, no sonic boom, nothing of that nature. You may have been on the beach at some point in time in your life. That's typically the area that I've actually noticed these sorts of things before, because it's so wide open, where the ocean landscape is not covered with trees and buildings and everything else. And so you can see a plane off in the distance or a jet fly by. And as you see it, you can start to notice the distance that it traveled based off of the sound that you hear and how long after you hear that noise. And so that's obviously a sonic boom or the speed of sound. And to travel at that speed without making any noise is quite something else.
Wow.
Which is why this particular video is pretty wild.
Now, it's my understanding that the government, this all happened during COVID, because I remember on one of our shows, we talked about it, and I was kind of in awe. I was really impressed, not in a great way, not in a positive way, but necessarily, I was just impressed at how few people seemed to care that the government announced this. And they said that these videos are true UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, but did they or did they not necessarily say that they were extraterrestrial?
They have not come out and stated that. They just say that the videos are legit. They are not doctored in any way, and they are kind of leaving it up to the decision of the masses to determine what they feel that it is. But
I mean, what else could it be? If we don't have that technology, I mean, who would? Because, as far as I know, the race for technology, there's very few that are, equal or ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's miles ahead of where we are. That's not, just, a couple more miles per hour. That's absolutely unearthly, unearthly, if you will.
For sure. And that's what makes this stuff so intriguing. Now, everybody, all the tinfoil hatters out there at one point in time, we've always used the term UFO, an unidentified flying object. But with a lot of these, as we're now calling them UAPs, and as you stated, the acronym, if you will, has even changed since what you've actually heard. And it's now going by an unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in the air like Underdog or something like that. It could be underwater. It could be traveling between the air and water, or in a means of transmedium, or potentially relocating from one location to another, potentially under stealth or through some form of teleportation. So that's the new terminology that's being thrown around by that.
So to kind of explain that, I think the most important word is unidentified. When we say that, we mean like unearthly.
For sure. I mean, if I look into the sky and I see something that I can't confirm what it is, I'm just your average Joe. But when these things are being viewed by people that have been a part of these types of programs, and whether it be military or otherwise, for decades, when they're not able to identify it, then it is truly unidentified and has a little more validity to it.
Did you want to go ahead and we'll look at this next video real quick?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so let's go ahead and check out this gimbal really quick.
Dude, this is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing. It's rotating.
All right, so that was the gimbal video. Interesting video. I mean, you know, all these are fairly similar. What are we looking at and what's the difference with the gimbal video? Tell us about what you found with that.
Well, the name itself, the gimbal video, is not based off of a name or a person that has recognized it or claimed it, like a star or anything like that. The UAP kind of manipulates the space it's in and turning, moving back and forth like a gimbal would, hence the name. But this one is January of 2015, and it is from Navy pilots off of the USS Theodore Roosevelt. And so they captured a UAP rotating and maneuvering like a gimbal. The UAP was recorded traveling at around 44 miles an hour again, as we spoke of before about the other UAP, which is quite wild, as you stated. 44 miles per hour is awfully slow to be flying something other than a kite or a drone you could buy at Target or something. Very interesting that we're back to that actual number again, that speed. But it seemed to rotate, and it also appeared to have some form of halo or force field around it that you could clearly see. At least I could. It looked like kind of a fog around it. It gave it a quality that was, clearly definable in that video we just watched. So nothing spectacular about that video other than the fact that they caught it and it maneuvers around in kind of a strange way. No real extreme speeds or anything like that. Just one of the videos that they released for us to view. And you'll notice a lot of these too are being viewed through a camera on these jets that are traveling so fast to begin with at such a distance from these things. It's not like you taking a video recorder or your cell phone and recording a fight going on in the front yard of your home or something. I mean, these are sometimes miles away and at speeds of 700 miles an hour. So you're going to have a little bit of graininess, and most of the images are going to appear in black and white for that.
Yeah, see, and that's the frustrating part for me is that, I mean, of course, and probably for a lot of people, is that while you're watching these videos, and these are the videos that the government has said are legit videos, it's like you're not really, it's hard to see what you're really looking at.
For sure, which makes it that much more both compelling, but yet potentially also something other than aliens, at least for this one, this particular one. But when you take something like that and you put it against the video that we watched prior, 55 Mach, like that's something else entirely. And so as some of these videos may be a little bit more provocative and kind of intriguing, some of them may seem a little bit more generic and kind of simplistic. And I think for this one, albeit a really cool image that they caught, it's not maybe as exciting as some of the other ones that.
Well, the best videos you see where you're like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, most of those are fake. So
For sure. For sure.
And that's kind of the bummer, is that it'd be cool to sort of see these things like up close and kind of, be able to see how they work up close and how they look up close without it being fake.
For sure. This next video is one that's been a topic of discussion for quite some time based upon the speed that it appeared to have traveled. And there's been a lot of research on this particular video. I've looked into it a lot as well as we prepare for the show. And I've got some kind of intriguing things to mention about it. But this one is the Go Fast video.
Nickel 6-1 Tango, Roger, over. Oh, got it! Woohoo! Roger, there's troubleshooting. Can you talk It's moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at that, man. Look at it fly.
All right. So what do you got to say about this one?
Well, this one's pretty interesting. You can hear that the fighter pilots are super excited that they were able to finally lock onto it. It was moving at quite a substantial speed, although the strange thing about it is it's never been noted or explained how quickly it was actually traveling. That was just something that different people have kind of put together their own understanding of what they felt was the speed it was traveling, until something that I viewed on YouTube, surprisingly, with some guys. And I want to get to that in a second, but I want to
YouTube's
tell you,
got the best stuff, man.
it really does. There's some awesome stuff in here and things that are hidden too. I mean, you pull up a specific keyword or something that you're looking for, and you may go through and watch 40 videos on something, and then miraculously later on find something else that never came up in your original search that may be even more compelling than anything else that you've seen. And I've noticed that a lot as I've viewed these things.
And one of my favorite things about YouTube is your ability to like, comment, and subscribe, which is what I would like to ask our viewers right now who are watching this to go ahead and do for me. It helps out our channel a lot, and we love the comments. We love the discussion.
So in also January of 2015, Navy 15 FA 18 Super Hornet locked on and recorded this UAP that appeared to be traveling just above the ocean floor. You could see almost like the waves below it as it was moving. And it seemed to be traveling extremely fast because of the perspective of the angle of the view from the camera of the jet that was recording it. So it appears as though this thing is that far away, right over the top of the water. Not unlike if you were to get into a sports car that's really, really low to the ground, and maybe you go 60 miles an hour on the highway, and you feel like you're going 100 because you're that much lower to the ground, that perspective, versus being up in a big ass truck going 60 miles an hour. Sometimes it feels like you're just kind of cumbersome and just kind of rolling along.
I know whenever I borrow a truck, like my father's truck, he's got a rather large truck. Whenever I borrow it to haul things, man, I'll look down and I don't even realize I'm going like 80, because it's just like, it doesn't feel like you're going fast.
Oh, for sure. It's easy to do. So the jet that was actually recording this, and these are all bits of information that I gathered from this YouTube video, and these gentlemen who are actually in school to be or are quantum physicists. So there's some pretty smart guys.
Talking about the Big Bang Theory boys now.
That's right. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the jet and how these gentlemen have kind of come up with a bit of a mathematical equation to be able to determine several different measurements and speeds. So they determined that the jet, and some of these things, once again, I'll backtrack. As you see the view from the camera, have certain things called out on the screen that help them understand altitude, the degree of angle that they're watching things, array of different numbers there that have meaning to them, far more than what I can truly understand and comprehend, because I'm not a fighter pilot. The jet was traveling at 25,000 feet, which is even then a little bit higher than what's normal, but that's pretty close to on par. And at a speed of about 425 miles per hour. So just cruising along, not doing anything crazy or weird maneuvers or anything like that. They determined the trajectory of the filming places the UAP at about 4.4 nautical miles from the jet itself. So if the jet is here and the UAP is angular and off to the side, you've got 4.4 nautical miles of distance.
Which is 1.15 miles is a nautical mile.
Correct, 1.15. So just a little bit over. That would be about 5 miles.
Yeah, just a little under.
Or excuse me, about 4 miles in fact. So the let's see, based off of the angle of the visual in the video, it was at a 26-degree angle of view. And so that places the object at about halfway between the jet's elevation and the surface of the ocean. So once again, if the jet is here and the UAP is here, the elevation height versus the ocean floor, that puts that thing relatively halfway between where the elevation of the jet was flying and the floor. So if the jet is at 25,000 feet, they determined that it was around 13,000 UAP. which means it is far above the surface of the ocean and therefore potentially closer to the jet. And if it's closer to the jet, something traveling slower may appear to be moving faster.
It does look like it's closer to the ocean on the video,
It does.
based on like the fact that you can see the ocean below it. You know,
Exactly.
it looks almost like it's cruising right above the top of it.
Exactly. And that's why a lot of people have kind of combated this assessment. And it's quite possible that they may be incorrect, but as I stated, about 7 or 8 guys put together this mathematical equation to try to determine this, and they all feel relatively confident in their findings.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with them because I almost failed math in college.
So based off of the length of the video, the time of the video, they're able to plug in parameters based off of a few different things. The length of their video and the distance traveled by the jet. The guys determined that the estimated speed of the UAP was around 179 miles. So not that fast at all. In fact, I'm not 100% sure, but that's kind of like kind of propeller, biplane type of speeds. That's not moving very quick at all, and certainly not anything that's going to be flying too far up in the air. But because of that, they also believe, based off of the measurements that they had, that the object itself was only about 6.5 to 7 feet, so in length. So it's not a very large UAP. It could have very possibly have been a foreign military drone. Highly unlikely it was a bird or anything like that, as it flew in a straight line for a good period of time.
Well, assuming that extraterrestrials are in it, depending on their size, if we say that maybe they are roughly the size of a human, we're talking about something that would only be carrying a couple of beings
Maybe.
tops.
Yeah, for sure. And which leads me to believe that this potentially, and as I stated before, just because one video or one instance feels like it could be 100% real or out of this world, another video that is equally as realistic might be something within this world. So, but that doesn't detract from the other ones that we've talked about, nor does it completely nullify the validity of this one potentially being something as well.
I was going to say, so to break it down, layman's terms, are you saying that you believe that this video is not real, or just that the way that they've presented it is not real?
Neither. I think that the video is real and the way they presented it was real, but there are certain parameters that in the moment you don't know or have. And so when you're viewing something in real time, you may be thinking that you're catching something more exciting than what you did. And not to say that this isn't anything extraterrestrial, but it seems to be something that's very well within our ability to have flying around in that airspace. The only thing is that our military was unaware of and did not know of anything that should have been there at that time. So with that being said, more than likely the only other option outside of some sort of extraterrestrial involvement would have been maybe a foreign military like drone or something that they didn't know was supposed to be there. But that doesn't make the video fake. It just makes the
possibility of it being extraterrestrial
correct. It's
questionable.
Very questionable in my opinion. Now, granted, once again, this is based off of information from these gentlemen, the quantum physicists that have come up with that. If they had not told this or come up with this, you wouldn't know. Like you said, and I had mentioned, it appears as though it's just flying right over the ocean surface. So I never would have guessed it was 13,000 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
So this one is as cool as the video is. Kinda isn't as excitable as some of the others.
Okay. Well, we got one left if you want to lead into that. So this one is the Hellfire missile video.
It's a good one.
All right. So that was the Hellfire missile video. Steve, what about this one?
Excuse me. Oh, boy. So the Hellfire missile was fired by a MQ-9 drone. the same drone, not the same drone, but the same type of drone that's actually filming. So we have one drone that's flying above the UAP, and then you see the missile come in from another angle, fired by another MQ-9 drone. This was October 30th of 2024, so this is relatively recent. And this was video recorded off the coast of Yemen. And yeah, so that's kind of cool. All these are happening in our, front yard, so to speak. They're going across the world with how we catch some of these things. So the other drone, as I stated, fired a Hellfire missile and made a direct hit, which appeared to separate the UAP into 4 pieces at first glance when you see that. In the first few minutes of impact, it appeared, as I stated, that it had created an explosion of some sort, or the object had blown up. Moments afterwards, you're able to determine that 3 smaller, identically shaped UAPs returned to formation and followed the larger piece. So when that missile came in, it didn't hit and explode. It actually ricocheted, and almost like if you were punching something and broke through it. Didn't explode, but it actually just kind of bounced off and caused these 3 individual smaller aircraft that are identical in shape to each other and size. So it's definitely not a random or any sort of explosion or degradation of the actual UAP itself. I think it was intentional, which is wild. And so just for reference, the Hellfire missiles deployed by drones traveled just over 1 Mach, Mach 1, I should say, which is about 767 miles per hour. So you can see how slow that missile came in to hitting the UAP, and that was 767 miles an hour. So you can determine, give or take, roughly how quick the UAP was traveling as well. But that one was really, really cool to me, to see something like that would have taken out anything else in our airspace or our...
Well, I wanted to add real quick, Steve. Hellfire missiles are highly precise, 100-pound air-to-ground weapons designed to destroy armored vehicles, fortified bunkers, and, in specific variants, R9X. Personnel using kinetic blades rather than explosives, they carry a 20-pound warhead and can strike targets up to 11 kilometers away with a 3-foot accuracy, causing 15 to 20 meter kill radiuses.
Yeah, that's wild. And for it to have done virtually nothing to this other than to reroute it temporarily is quite strange. And I know you and I have spoken in the past about this, that why, if in fact that was a alien spacecraft or something to that nature, why would you even allow that missile to hit you? What's the point of it? Why wouldn't you just kind of zig a little bit and let it go by if you're that much more technologically advanced than we are? And that's a question I don't have an answer for.
Well, I have a couple of questions, and one question is are these drones set up to automatically do this? Because if you're not sure what something is, I guess they would have thought it was a threat, so that's why they shot at it.
Yes.
Because I'm just kind of thinking, if you don't know what something is, why would you automatically shoot at it? But then again, that seems to be kind of the human way. I worry about that a lot when it comes to extraterrestrial life and everything, because even if somebody was coming here in pure peace, I feel like the first thing we would do is probably try to fight it.
Yep.
Because that's just the way we are.
All the movies I've ever seen pertaining to aliens is the same way. It feels like we're out of, lack of better terms, being scared. We try to overcompensate our shortcomings or the lack of our advancement versus their technological advancement by being more aggressive than they are right out of the gate. And I've never understood that. That seems very, very stupid to me, first and foremost. But
well, in all fairness, man, Mars Attacks did teach us that, we did try to be nice in Mars Attacks. And
that's true. One of several. But
you got to keep your Slim Whitman records handy if we ever end up with that kind of invasion.
No kidding. What did you think? What did you think about this one, though? This is pretty wild.
Well, the other question I had is why it didn't explode on impact. That's weird.
Yeah.
Because if it did impact, that's what the missiles are designed to do, is explode on impact. Once you hit your target, you explode. So that was kind of interesting, because it makes me wonder what kind of shield or technology was around what it had hit.
Yeah, it's almost like it had been, like the detonation portion of it had been compromised in some form or fashion. Like it allowed it just to bump off of it and call it a day. And because of that, as I stated, maybe this was a weird flex, like, hey, this is the type of stuff that you guys got. Let me show you what it's not going to do to us. And So they may have shut the warhead down, if you want to call it that, or the device that causes the explosion and just let the thing ping off it, because it's clear that the trajectory of that missile ends up moving slightly as it goes through it. So it did hit it.
Well, the only last comment or question I have on the video is I wonder the size of the UAP because you can clearly see the missile. So I'm like, it didn't seem like it was that much larger than the missile itself.
Exactly. But they're not very big. They're only about 5 foot 1 inch to 5 foot 9 inches. So that would potentially put that UAP in around the 7 foot, 8 foot range, maybe very similarly to what
So
the
Go
gentleman.
Fast.
Yeah,
The Go,
yeah,
yeah, the Go Fast video, probably
yeah.
around the same size.
No kidding.
So, I mean, that's interesting because you always think of UAPs, UFOs, spaceships. You always think of them as these larger things. Of course, we've seen the smaller, I guess, one person propelled, movies, like Independence Day and stuff like that. They have so it's kind of interesting because I feel like that's probably what we're looking at. But if we are looking at that, it's only safe to assume that there is a larger, much, much larger vessel either in the sky or possibly in the ocean.
Absolutely. And, as we have drones and we can remote fly certain things, why would we not think that they could too? They don't have to have a manned ship, so to speak, or UAP. That could definitely have been some sort of drone that they were using as well for whatever reason it may be.
I'm assuming, and this is just my thoughts, if there was a planetary race for technology, even though our technology is advanced a lot, which we'll talk about in a minute, I would say that we're probably very, 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 very much behind. If this was a technological race between us and other galaxies, planets, whatever you want to call, whatever that is, whatever the extraterrestrial entity is, kind of seems like we're playing with sticks, compared to them playing with laser beams at this point.
Exactly. And as you had stated before in another episode, we were talking about cavemen making fire and things like that. I mean, when you stumble upon certain things that are more inherent to nature itself, I mean, a fire is going to be created through lightning or really dry circumstances and friction of some sort of magnification of the sun. Those are all amazing discoveries, but once you understand and harness what it's coming from, it's relatively simplistic in nature. To have a craft or a ship or something that can maneuver in the way that these things allegedly do, and let's not even get into the guts of it all. Yes, this stuff is traveling at high speeds, can do extremely strange maneuvers within the air that we're just not simply capable of.
Going thousands of miles per hour, stopping on a dime, going up, going down, going backwards, side to side. I mean, those are just things that we can't do.
Correct.
This is where things get interesting. Some theorists argue that major technological leaps such as fiber optics, integrated circuits, night vision, stealth technology may have been accelerated through recovered non-human tech. To be clear, there is no verified evidence that modern technology came from alien craft. However, the claim of reverse engineering programs has surfaced repeatedly and whistleblower testimonies over the decades. Could breakthrough be the result of classified research programs instead? Absolutely. But the idea that humanity might have leapfrogged through internal intelligence, that's the part that keeps people up at night. That's the part that keeps Steve up at night. So it does seem to me that, progression happens fast. Once we figure something out, everybody figures out what to do with it and how to improve upon it. With that being said, I do also have to admit that, we have gotten to a point where it's just like, how has this happened? And I think that's more where Steve comes in.
Oh, for sure.
And kind of give us your thoughts on that.
Well, most people, when they wake up in the morning, get ready to go to work, they're thinking about, do I have coffee ready? What's my day look like? They're not thinking about, that night that they sat up 6 months earlier and stared up at the sky, contemplating life and looking at, quite literally millions of stars and galaxies and everything out there. And everybody at some point in time in their life have had that kind of moment where everything else that is going on in their life kind of is put to the side, and they start to just have all these questions come up like, wow, man, that's amazing. What about this? What about that? And usually it's short lived and you put it away because you have no clue and it doesn't change or help you and how you're going to get on to your next day and what you're going to do at work. And so a lot of people don't agonize over that and think about it too much. But the more that you do get involved in understanding how much we truly have grown leaps and bounds over just a handful of years, exponentially is just unfathomable. I wanted to kind of point out one particular thing, and you had mentioned a couple of really good ones with like night vision and some of the other things, as you said. Those are all great, but one of the things that I've always really found amazing is how small can you make something? You know, when we were kids, believe we had like one of those old school Zenith TVs. It was, and it's probably 14, 15 inches wide. It wasn't very big. And it was amazing. That was like the most technological, cool thing
Well,
ever.
to a lot of the young viewers too, they don't realize that that thing was about as basically square.
Yeah, it was,
It was as much there's as much in the back as there was on the sides because it just held everything that it held. It was huge. I mean,
yeah, it had a huge tube in it.
I'll even put a picture up for those younger viewers. But I mean, TVs back in the day, they weren't this flat thing we have today. I mean,
Yeah.
they were gigantic. You'd have to make some real space. If you got a big TV back in the day, you'd have to make some real space for that in your house.
And the thing weighed a metric ton. I mean, it was
Yeah.
heavy and hard to maneuver and move around. And, there was no remote control either. You had to change the channel. And although you didn't have many, you had to get your ass up and do it yourself. So, but that was only a handful of decades after everybody leaning up against the radio at night, listening to stories and getting their news off the radio and getting their entertainment off the radio as well. So a big jump to when I was a kid, but I wanted to talk about transistors. And so for those that don't understand what a transistor is, a transistor, they're found in simple circuits to complex integrated circuits, and they amplify electrical signal. They act as kind of like a switch, if you will, and control the flow of electrical current, enabling or disabling the operation of other components within a piece of electronic device. You find it a lot in cell phones and computers and TVs, as we stated, radios, all that good stuff. So I wanted to point out a couple things and then make some references to see just how insanely astronomical it is that we've gone from one thing to another. So I wanted to mention that the first computer that used transistors was operational at the end of 1953. So
That's sooner than I would have thought,
let's call it
honestly.
75 years ago.
Yeah, if you asked me, I would have said the 70s, but
Yeah, no, 53. And they did have some forms of really simplistic computers prior to that, but they used like light tubes and different means other than transistors. And so I just wanted to get into the transistor side of things. In 1953, that particular computer had and utilized 200 transistors, which you're like, wow, that's a lot of transistors based off of what you understand that they do. Let's fast forward about 20 years later.
to put it in perspective, the computer you're talking about was probably the size of like a bedroom now. Like
It was very large. It really was. And the supercomputers, if you will, from back in that time frame. And this is something else too that you may have heard that, and I don't know how true it is. It could be even more so, but usually the average public is about 10 years behind or maybe more military tech. So something that is fresh and new to you and I today could have been around 10, 15 years ago and applied and used in military to keep us ahead of the curve, if you will. But in 1953, 200 transistors. Let's fast forward about 20 years or so to 1974. Intel 8080 had 6,000 transistors. So that's quite a jump in 21 years. And then let's once again jump about 20 years to 1993, where the first Pentium processor had 3.1 million transistors. Now that seems like a lot. And in reality, it is. 3.1 million transistors is an insane amount of transistors.
So to put that into perspective, is that what we're talking about? Like that was kind of where we were at for the first computers that were like in the home?
For the most part, yes. Yeah, correct. And you'd have to be pretty wealthy in the late 80s and early 90s to have had one. In fact, I had something that was a word processor, a brother word processor, which was kind of a cross between a typewriter and a computer. Although
Yeah.
it didn't have access, of course, to the internet, didn't exist at that.
Yeah, a lot of those things were really just glorified computers that you could hook a printer up to, so you could kind of, if anything, the real great thing about those was, unlike a typewriter, you could fix it while you were typing it up. You could
Correct.
save it, and you could print it, but essentially it was a typewriter.
For the most part, yes. And so taking those numbers in 1993 with Pentium, we all have heard of the Pentium processor. We might not know what it is, but we've heard of that. 3.1 million. So now let's go to the Apple M3 Ultra, which is a CPU, a relatively new computer that Apple has created. That computer, and we just went from 93 to 26, so we're a little over 30 years, contains 184 billion transistors. That's insane. And those are the types of numbers when you actually think about it, you stop and you actually think about it. That's impossible. That's truly impossible.
And the tech is getting smaller and smaller.
Exactly. And that's because of that. You can't, 184 billion transistors would not only have taken up the entire room back in 1953, it might have taken up the whole state. So
yeah, wow.
That's insane. So, and likewise with Apple's A15 Bionic chip that's found in like iPhone 13, for example, that has over 15 billion transistors. And not only that does that small little handheld device have 15 billion transistors, but it also allows for about 15.8 trillion operations per second. So behind the scenes, when you're monkeying around on your cell phone and you're complaining that your YouTube video lagged for 2 seconds, shut the up, if you know what I'm saying. That's a bit insane. That all of that stuff is the amount of work that it's doing constantly to be able to give you that song that you're listening to, or more importantly, that video that you're watching, whatever else, is absolutely insane. It's astronomical. It's crazy. And so for me, I wanted to kind of, bring that correlation to say that, look, we went from 200 transistors 75 years ago to 184 billion in a computer. And so when you think about that sort of stuff, and the other crazy thing about it is that in today's day and age, you can fit about 30 million transistors on the tip of a needle, on the pin tip of a needle. 30 million transistors. That you can't even, remember when you used to say something was as thin as a hair, or you'd be like, wow, it's thickness of a hair. Wow, that's amazing. Imagine fitting 15 to 20 million transistors on the tip of a hair,
That's insane.
It is. It is insane. And not only is it insane, the more you think about it, the more it will scramble your brain like eggs. It's just not, I don't know how it's possible. And these are thinking things. They are turning off and on, creating switches and allowing information and electrical current to pass through at such a small rate. I don't know if you've ever had the bad luck of cutting a power line in your house, like the white Romex. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but your typical alternating current AC power that you have in any outlet in your home typically is about 120 volts. And that's enough to potentially kill somebody. Commercial buildings and commercial equipment usually has 240 or more and is considered a 3-phase, and that will definitely put a hurting on somebody or kill them. But when you think about how easy it is for electricity to jump from one thing to another, you may have seen it in power lines or whatever else, arcing. Let's go to Tesla's invention way back when, where you could see that, probably go into like a Ripley's Believe It or Not, or one of those things, and kind of put your hand over the ball and have those really neat things. Electricity can move and get off course extremely easy once it finds its path. So you're sending electrical current to the tune of 30 million pieces of transistors that are supposed to shut down and shut off energy and put it to certain locations on the tip of a needle. Doesn't sound possible to me. So pretty wild.
So what and to bring this all around to what we're actually talking about, the theory behind this and what a lot of people would believe is that we've had help with this technology.
How could we have gotten there without it? That's my point.
So thinking about the whole, I guess, space of what we could believe is extraterrestrial technology. That's the thing though, is that realistically, the scary part is that if your theory and a lot of theories that make a lot of sense are true, I'm sure we probably don't even have close to what they have. If anything, if they've helped us with technology, it's probably hand-me-down stuff, that's, hundreds of years behind them, so when you think about the scope of technology that they have versus what we have, if we did receive help from them, obviously they're not going to give us their newest, brightest, best thing. Especially, and I mean, honestly, I don't think we could even be trusted with that because, like I said before, man, humans, we're just naturally violent. We just want to kill everything we don't understand, and it's crazy. And I mean, anybody that would give us technology to destroy them would be insane because that's the first thing we're going to do because that's what people do. People destroy things, and it's sad and it's ridiculous.
Well, there's two different ways of thinking. If in fact we're talking about alien technology, how did we get it? How did we receive it? Was it gifted to us openly, or were we trying to
Or did we steal it?
reverse engineer what we've found or what we've taken?
That's a good
So
point.
if I handed a cell phone to a caveman, they're going to look at it and smash it against a rock, and that's about as far as they're going to get. But if I hand them a Rubik's cube, they were going to notice the colors, they're going to see some things, and they're going to start to notice a pattern potentially, and maybe there's a way to solve this and figure this out. And over time, albeit quite a long time from somebody like a caveman, more likely, they're gonna stumble across the answer. And once they do, what do they do with that? How do they utilize that? How do they move forward with it? And so even a lot of the stuff that we have now may not have potentially uh, been what it was intended for to start with, or how it's used from an extraterrestrial standpoint. We just reverse engineered it to a point where we can utilize it for something that is suitable for our needs. And
So if we had any crashes or if we were able to come across any kind of extraterrestrial spacecrafts or technology, we could have potentially taken that, figured out how to use it, and that boom, now we have billions of transistors in a pin needle.
that's true. I mean, and as we've talked about before, both candidly and on the show at times, I mean, look at us over the last 50 years. Look at us over the last 30 years. I mean, how much we never would have thought. I know we joked about Star Trek, and I used to watch that back in the day. You did from time to time, but the whole watch is, and beam
I
me
was
up
a
from the.
I was a TOC purist, is what I say.
That's right. But those sorts of things that were quite literally just fairy tale back then is now a reality. So outside of teleportation, which we haven't gotten there yet, who's to say that that's not possible at some point? You can't move one physical location to another. There's a lot of insane stuff going on, and when you start to get involved with AI, and that's something that's way out of the realm of my understanding, but some of the things that we can do and how quickly AI can decipher what you're asking it to do and pull, I don't know how many billions of images and videos and bits of information that they have on a specific topic. When you say you want to give your cat a baseball hat and have it crocheting, and then it turns your cat into that video of it crocheting on the couch or whatever. Like, how does it even get to that point? How can it discern and make those decisions and pull all of the information together in a time to be able to do that? That's wild in its own right.
Well, let's move on to kind of where we're going with all of this and bringing it back around here to what the government says it will disclose. The recent legislation has pushed for greater transparency around UAP. The 2023 National Defense Authorization Act included provision requiring agencies to submit historical UAP records, to classify non-sensitive material. That right there says a lot. To classify non-sensitive material. I mean, who decides what's sensitive anyway? Create a public-facing archive. There have also been bipartisan efforts to establish review boards for controlled disclosure. But here's the reality. Governments rarely release everything. National security concerns always come first. So what we may get isn't confirmation of aliens, but confirmation of unknown technology, and that alone changes things. So with that being said, it's a matter of, and I'm going to tell everybody right now, if you're still with us and you're still watching, this is take two. I explained that at the beginning of this, and we are leaving a lot of names and information that we have found out of this because it is our belief, because it's never happened before, that we had technical difficulties due to potentially the subject matter that we're discussing. And I don't know if that's true or not. I am the skeptic. But because of that, we decided to see if we could actually pull this video off being a little bit more obtuse or a little bit more,
less definitive. No, you're right.
Yeah, less definitive. So please take everything, with a grain of salt here, because we did have detailed information detailing a lot of these things a lot further, but I didn't want to have the risk of us not being able to put that out there again. So we did simplify things a little bit.
There's a few things I want to mention too about that. One of which, if anybody is interested, and we've talked about this before too, what's the point of classifying something that's not real or that doesn't exist? That in its own right is kind of an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense. It's not like you classify that which you don't want people to know, not what you don't. That's not real. Like that's the strange thing about it. So that in its own right there leads me to believe that a lot of this stuff is in fact real. There is a show, or I should say, a movie documentary that came out late last year called Age of Disclosure that I want to let everybody know about. It is on Prime currently, and it is something that is really worth watching if you have the opportunity to. And in that movie, there are a lot of names, a lot of programs, and a lot of files that you and I had spoken of and touched on that I think in the right way may have kind of tripped an alarm, so to speak, and kind of shut us down. But that is all stuff that you guys can see on your own. And certainly a lot of this information, as it's been made public, is available. But there are also ways of acquiring government information as well, and that is through the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA. One thing I will mention about that, though, is that information that you can gather through the government is only pertinent and pertains to government related things. So, for example, if a crash happens, a UAP lands in my backyard and a crew comes and takes that stuff away, and it ends up in a subcontractor's domain outside of the government, they are not disclosed or beholden to disclose anything that they find or what they do with it. So I think that's why there are a lot of subcontractors, especially when it comes to the military for that matter, and why they use subcontractors to take care of things and to reverse engineer and do all that stuff, because there's no law that states that has to be brought to light or in public. So those are just something I wanted to bring to your attention.
Yeah, of course. And that's, it seems to be, that's a lot of the conspiracies over the years, is how do you hide things? And I mean, there's always going to be loopholes. There's always going to be, red tape and loopholes. So, so next, my question is, what could this mean for human existence? Everything that we're talking about, and the possibility that potentially the government is going to release more files, maybe even disclosing the fact that there is extraterrestrial life or that there is unexplained technology. Let's say hypothetically, we confirm intelligence, non-human life has visited Earth. What happens next? Religion would have to adapt. Science would explode into a new frontier. Governments would face massive trust questions. Military power structures could shift overnight. But more than that, humanity would no longer be alone. And psychologically, that's massive. It reframes our place in the universe, our sense of superiority, our concept of destiny. Or maybe the truth is simpler. Maybe these are foreign technologies. Maybe they're classified human projects. Maybe they're atmospheric phenomenon we don't yet understand. The unknown doesn't automatically mean alien, but it does mean we don't have all the answers. And that might be the most unsettling part. So, there are a lot of things that we'd have to rethink, I mean, there are a lot of things that would happen that would change a lot it would have to change the entire way we think about things, I mean, everything that we've known up until now.
And I think we touched briefly, and I don't want to get too involved in this because this may have been part of why we got kicked out, if you will. But when they released a lot of this information, it was at the height of COVID, and people were staring off into the distance somewhere else. And so you give this information to those that are looking elsewhere. Now we're talking about certain files that I won't say a name of, that everybody is involved in understanding, as well as truth comes to light with certain both people involved and the things that went on with it. And so a lot of people are focused on that. What better time to give the next round of potential alien information or extraterrestrial information, because of people's gaze is somewhere else. They're off looking somewhere else in the distance. So,
do you want to know my honest opinion, Steve?
I do.
My honest opinion is that people today could be told anything and it wouldn't matter. I don't think people have the focus. I don't think people understand what certain things actually mean or how those things could change the world. I think that everybody is so involved with their cell phones and tablets and just everything going on in their lives, and that things are moving so fast that people really wouldn't even notice. I think that it wouldn't matter. I think that literally tomorrow the government could be like, yes, there are aliens. They do live amongst us. This is what they look like. Hell, Justin Bieber's one of them, and nobody would even give a shit. I mean, I just really feel that way, and it's sad that I feel that way. But I just don't think that people these days either. I don't know if it's that they don't have the mental bandwidth, or if it's that people are literally just so wrapped up in their own world that they don't care. But I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters one bit. And after they announced everything during COVID, and it was like me and maybe 3 people I know were actually like, "Wow, do you realize what this means?" I mean, quite frankly, it just wouldn't surprise me at all if nobody talked about it the next day.
Right. And you're not wrong by that. I mean, we're so fixed and focused on our everyday lives and what is important to us as individuals that yes, we can conceptualize, and certainly our hearts bleed for starving people across the world. But if they're not standing right in front of us, it doesn't have the same sting or the same feeling. And you're completely right about that. If it's not going to change the way they go about their world, it's not going to affect them until you have a 3-foot alien standing right in front of you. And even then, I think half the people that would see that would not even believe what they're seeing.
You know what the first thing they would do
believe
is
what
pull
they're
out
being
their
told.
phone. The first thing
Sure.
they do is pull out their phone to get a video. Then if the alien seems friendly, get a selfie. And then everybody else wouldn't believe them probably.
Well, the information that was given, I've noticed just through this whole Iran conflict and the bombing and everything else. And I don't want to talk about individual platforms, but I've seen several videos that are 100% lies that are being told right on screen, like CNN or NBC or whatever else, and telling you something that you're viewing is of a certain time and of a certain date and of a certain actionable consequence. This happened, and can you believe that we did this? The United States did this. And come to find out that video is from 2003, or this video is from 4 years ago, and it's from something completely different. But for whatever reason, we are manipulating the truth to keep people either at each other's odds, like to keep us divided. And I think that's a tactic that would be used in any disclosure of extraterrestrial stuff too. The minute you start putting that stuff out there, you're going to have a bunch of people that are doctoring it, changing it to make it less realistic. They're going to start telling lies about certain things, where it came from, whatever else, and then you really get to dig and find out what's truth and what's deception. And
it's like the biggest circle of morons playing telephone.
for sure.
And that's pretty much, where we're at with that is that, I mean, this stuff is all very interesting to me, and it's interesting to talk about. And realistically, I don't think it'll change the average person in one way or another, even a little bit. But I mean, it's compelling for those who do care and for those who are interested. And I mean, even then, there is a big question of like, what could you do? And I mean, sometimes it's not as much about what action could be taken as just being aware. I think that's important sometimes, is that there is certain things in life that you can't do anything about. You can't control, and there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can do, but I mean, it's just being aware of things. It's just being informed. It's having that knowledge and that information, and just being intelligent enough or mindful enough to have those things in your back pocket for when something does matter or does happen,
And one thing I would tell everybody, and certainly you do what you want, but in today's day and age, it's so easy to have a hive-minded mentality, where when somebody who aligns with you says something or shows you something, that you automatically 100% just buy into it without ever truly understanding if it's real, truthful, what the hidden meaning is behind it. Think for yourself, research, don't take anything at face value. If I had to throw a number out, I'd say probably 90%, maybe even more of Americans consume their news through social media and get it through social media. And that's about although A lot of the mainstream media, it isn't that great either at telling you the truth, but you got to do your own research and think for yourself. Don't just buy into everything that you see and hear as truth.
We're probably going to do more on this at some point in time. I mean, most of the discussions that we start on this show, or most of the shows that we do, they're usually like part one of many. It's kind of like the discussion's going to keep going as things happen, as things progress. Like I said, this was kind of just a show getting into, the more recent activity of hearing that the government does plan to disclose more information, because we're interested to see what that is. So we kind of thought we'd bring you up to date on that, and kind of, bring us up to where we are now. We're just kind of giving you what we can here. And Steve, did you have anything else you want to say before I wrap us up?
I think that's about it. Just keep an open mind, guys. Believe it or don't believe it is your prerogative, but certainly before you dismiss anything or you are wholeheartedly all in on something, do your research, because what we're fed and what we consume in the way of information over the course of our lifetime is certainly suspect at times. So.
And with that being said, I just want to also remind you that if you're still here with us, go ahead, subscribe, like, and comment. We want to keep the discussions going, and we definitely, you subscribing and your likes definitely help this channel move along. We've grown a lot over the last year, and I'd like to continue to grow. We're just a couple guys that enjoy doing this, and I would love to get sort of some other people out there that enjoy this as well, and, have things to say about the things that we're talking about. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with a little something here. And that's, for decades, aliens were treated like fantasy. We were talking about the Star Trek and things like that. Now, congressional hearings are discussing non-human intelligence in broad daylight. Whether this ends in confirmation, debunking, or something in between, the conversation has changed, and that alone is historic. So let me ask you, do you think we're being slowly prepared for disclosure, or is this just the modern version of Cold War paranoia? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and join the discussion. Because whether it's ghosts, monsters, or something watching from the sky, we're going to talk about it. And until next time, keep looking up. See you soon. I kind of miss UFOs. I kind of miss that terminology, because for me, UFOs have always kind of also been aliens. UFOs have always been a huge part of horror, to kind of relate this to the show. And I always liked that whole, these Men in Black UFO kind of idea, because it just, I don't know, that was always fun for me. So UAP also makes it seem a lot more, not only updated, but real.
No, for sure. I mean, when I think UFO, I think of a grocery store checkout line looking at a Inquirer or something, and seeing how some country singer got impregnated by an alien or whatever, and flew off in the UFO. I mean, those are the silly stories and the things that have been attached to UFOs for decades. And so by reclassifying them as something a little bit more professional and therefore potentially realistic and truthful, kind of takes some of that childlike silliness away from it.
I always personally loved those magazines, man, because they were always, I remember when I was a kid, I always saw them up there next to like the Mad magazines and all that stuff. And it was just, I always thought they were so fun, man, like Bat Boy and those kinds of things. They were always a blast to look at and kind of look through. It was so funny.
They were pretty wild. And, a lot of people still use the term UFO, and it certainly has not lost its luster from that standpoint. It's just, it can be kind of misconstrued as something more playful and fake, as opposed to something a little more professional and potentially real.
Well, maybe that's why I like it, because it fits into my imaginary realm of old school horror and things like that.